So, there is a new addition to the Morningstar. A little bit of construction has been going on over on the periphery, and this construction reminds me a lot of what we've seen with expansions past, notably the Unlocked and Loaded update, which brought the crafting station. This yellow construction cordoning was used in that as well in order to block off the area for a few weeks to a month prior to the actual update, even when we knew that crafting would be what was coming. This, however, whatever is supposed to go here, is truly a mystery, no pun intended, at this point, although there are a few hints that we can use to determine what they might be about. Now, I'll be getting into exactly what I think it is in this video and giving my wildest speculations and hopes for what this might be leading to, but I think we have a few pieces of evidence to work off of. Firstly, this little sign or large sign rather, that's in here says hangar. So this is somewhere that is leading to somewhere external to the ship. Certainly a hangar could take us down to Atoma, like normal, right, to the regular old Hive City, but why have a second hangar for that when there's already a perfectly functional one right over there? The second hint was that Fat Shark mentioned at the end of their 2025 wrap-up that Darktide would be going places this year, which I think is just such an obvious tell, very tongue-in-cheek of them to put it that way. And the final and perhaps most important tell, the way that you can understand more about what's going on in Darktide all the time, is actually hinted at in this book right here. You just have to look really, really closely. Like a little closer still. Hold on. It's about... Just squint, guys. Squint really close. Put your face close to the screen. Yeah, exactly. That's it right there. So with that introduction out of the way, let's get into my speculation. And I'm just going to give you my thoughts around this. I have, of course, been thinking about this for a while because I love Darktide, and I really, really, really want this year to be full of big, powerful updates that get a lot of people into the game, because this game is really cool. And I think that this year has a lot of potential if we are living in the good reality, and I'll touch back on that in a second. But I personally believe that this update, this spring update, is going to be very content heavy, and I mean that in the true sense of the word. It will be not focused around class rebalances or weapon tweaks or anything like that, but it will instead be focused around actual new content, such as maps or game modes or something of that sense. Now, I personally don't think that Mortis Trials, as implemented currently, rises to the level of of content that I'm talking about here, so think on a scale larger than that. Think at least 3 maps, somewhere in that realm, but I think that we're going a little bit more crazy or creative or different than that. And let me walk you through a little bit my thought process here. How do I know, or what makes me think so confidently that this is going to be content? Well, the first hint is that we of course have this Morningstar construction going on. This is not a thing that Fat Shark needs to do. It is just a thing they're doing because they are confident that there is something going to go there in the near future. And the reason I say near future is because we already know that the second update for this year, the summer update, is not going to be mainline some sort of content update like would go in that slot there. The main line for the summer update will be the new class that is going to be added. They've already told us as much in the 2025 wrap-up video, that their wrap-up post, that there's going to be one major update and then this new class that they are well underway developing. And all of that points to that this first update is not going to be anything to do with that class. They will save that class for the Skulls reveal, just like they did RBDs last year. No, so this isn't a new class, and we also had a year last year which was almost completely devoid of of map content or general large content drops outside of class changes, right? Both spring and fall were reworks and rebalances to the existing classes, as well as some weapon tweaks, and then summer and winter were those new classes, the Hive Scum and the Arbites. So we had a year where no real full maps were added. We had 3 Mortis Trials sort of single room maps, and then we had 1 operation with No Man's Land. So there's lots and lots of open air there to guess what was the team that normally develops maps and makes that sort of content, enemy content, everything outside of the character design for our characters and balances our characters. What were they all up to for an entire calendar year, since the last time we received any full levels was in December of 2024. So that all, to me, kind of would make me think that there is some big stockpile that is going on. I couldn't conceptualize why they would be stockpiling maps unless it is for something like this, where Fat Shark alludes at the end of their 2025 wrap-up post saying, "We are going places this year." Obviously, if we are investigating a new Hive city with a completely different tile set, or perhaps this is going to be a new game mode that has a new set of rules and the way that you interact with the environment is completely different, it doesn't make any sense to release 1 or 2 maps with that, because then you're going to have a really, really small piece of dead-end content. No, they'd want it to be a fleshed out sort of experience. Now, what this could be is up to some artistic interpretation, but I think that this year there is going to be a lot of expansion on content as the baseline for the game. And I think that they have spent the last year, 2025, backlogging this content. I think that as opposed to what we saw in 2025, which I don't know if you guys got this sense, but I certainly did, where they were kind of scrambling from update to update, where we were receiving almost no information about what the update was going to be until just weeks before the actual drop, and then we were even having changes, just alongside the drop. That stuff to me felt like Fat Shark was scrambling and last minute putting some stuff together to produce these quarterly updates. This time around, we come into the year, they're immediately saying, hey, our new class is almost ready. It's going to be coming out second update of the year. First update of the year is coming as well, and they're giving us this teaser that, hey, we're going places, and they're putting a physical showcase in the Morningstar that, hey, we're building something and it's going to go right here. So I don't think they're going to be delaying that for fall. I think it's going to be coming out in spring. So now begs the question, what is going to be the content update? Since I have to, I have to assume it's going to be content. This is when we got to hit the hopium, guys. Maybe you could call it copium, but my tank here, hold on. That's stuff. Yeah, it says hopium on the side, but who knows what it's filled with. Chaos Waste is my hopium for this, right? Chaos Waste is by far, in my polling at least, which 15,000 of you guys replied to, is by far the most popular concept for wholly new content, far more popular than just more maps or whatever else, or new enemy types. This is a game mode which, I mean, you've been watching the gameplay on the screen. Chaos Waste is a game mode that was from Vermintide 2. It came out as part of the Winds of Magic expansion, and this game mode is really, really cool. It is a cross between your normal playstyle, and it includes roguelike elements. It is pretty much Mortis Trials, but incorporated into the normal adventure maps, where you go from map to map, and what they've really done is more or less operation size maps. These are 10, 15-minute maps, and they are linked together. And after you complete one, you can choose a path to the next one to sort of tailor the level of challenge that you face. There are shops and stores along the way, and during these maps, you're collecting resources and you're cashing them in, and you're buying new buffs to make your character more powerful. And when you complete the run, you reset, you go back, and you can get a new build the second time around. So it is a incredibly, incredibly fun experience. It put another 1,000 hours on Vermintide 2 for me when I already had 1,500. So I really love it as someone who loves roguelikes and Darktide. I think it would be a phenomenal idea. And when I look at the realistic potential for this to be included, I don't feel like I'm huffing copium. I feel like I am seriously onto something here. Because first of all, we have a ton of the groundwork laid for a system like this in a number of different places. Just flatly, we have the Mortis Trials, right? Mortis Trials already are a hint that this is just a trial. There must be something larger coming behind. I know that Joe Plays Games just made a video on this. We've talked about it a lot at length prior. She was the one who actually showed me the construction going on in the Morningstar. What she calls it is Mortis Operations, and that would fit very well with the Mortis Operatives gear, which is, I believe, the gear that comes alongside the Imperial Edition, the Deluxe Edition DLC for the base game. So there is references to Mortis operatives. If you have these Mortis operations, what would they be, right? They would just be extended versions of the Mortis trials. The Mortis trials, I think, are very cool conceptually, but we would all have to agree that they are a completely dead piece of content right now. They are super, super, like bite-sized. You can go and do it and it's fine. It's fun for what it is, but you're in one room, you're fighting waves of enemies that are pretty damn predictable, and the limits on how like games express themselves are pretty miserably small. So what would be different about Mortis operations is you are instead taking those buffs, those roguelike buffs that you get in that Mortis, the Mortis Trials mode, and you are instead applying it to basically a regular game where you're playing through and the enemies are amped up, to sort of Havoc levels-ish in order to compensate for that and make it difficult now that you are a super-powered character. One thing that I think really points to this being the case, that points to the Mortis Trials actually being a indicator that we are going to be getting some content like this at least some point down the line, is that the amount of effort that went into developing this stuff is not small, right? For a piece of content that almost nobody really engages with, I mean, try to go find a game of Mortis Trials right now and it'll actually take you a while to fill a party. They have put a lot of effort into this, and it really shocked me to see in fall of 2025 that they doubled down and made a third map for it when this is a type of content that is cool but no one really is playing. So I thought, wow, they are either really out of touch or they are working on something big. And I think that inside of us exists like two wolves, right? One of them is that doomer wolf who wants to say, yeah, Fat Shark has no idea what's going on. They just didn't have anything ready for the thing. One of their devs cooked up this Mortis Trials concept and they were like, sure, good enough, throw it in there. But I think the more optimist wolf, and where I'm at, is saying that this was all stuff that it was a testing grounds and was piecemeal of the larger project that they weren't ready to release at the time, that they didn't have the whole thing together, because obviously this is a large scope, is a large scale project that you couldn't release just one piece of it. Now they could ostensibly continue to release multiple campaigns over time if we are going to do Mortis operations and they are campaigns. If you have played Chaos Waste and Vermintide 2, there were different sort of campaigns that have different challenges associated with them. There are 4 different ones, and that could be something they increase the quantity of over time, but you would have to have the basic number of pieces to connect there to make the 6 or 7 mission long campaign just within its own self-contained linear story. So I think that you would have to have a large backlog of map assets and weave that together with the Mortis Trials sort of framework in order to create Mortis operations, if that is indeed what they're working towards. I think that just polling alone and the way that Darktide is just so much more built around these pseudo magical aspects, I think it would be a massive, massive hit with the community. If you have not played Chaos Waste and Vermintide 2, I highly recommend you go try it out. It's a lot of fun, even if Vermintide 2 is a little bit more jank than Darktide is at this point. The only things that hold me back from thinking this might be the case is, 1, it does seem that the Mortis Trials are going on in Sephane's brain, and that sort of justifies why we have these crazy effects, like grenades duplicating out of nowhere and all that sort of stuff. However, all we need is some justification for suspension of disbelief, right? In Vermintide and Chaos Waste, it was literally blessings from the gods. It was literally blessings from Sigmar that were giving us our powers, our literal magic powers, in order to combat the craziness of the Chaos Waste. All we need is something like that in Darktide, and I believe it would just be the warp. Who's to say that the powers of the warp couldn't be, sort of made malleable by Sephane's power and then relayed to us in real space? Because, I mean, that's how she gets her powers. That's how we can have this existence that's this kind of functional reality in her psychanium, is all through the powers of the warp. I think it could be reasoned that she could make that stuff happen in reality. And the reason I say in reality is because if we're building this bay over here, this the stuff on the left side of the hub, then, well, we're very likely looking at deployment to an actual physical space somewhere around Tertium. Now, maybe there's a place around Tertium that is particularly the veil to the warp is very thin, and the warp is leaking through and offering these sort of corrupting mutator buffs to enemies and allies alike, and that's how we can justify this. Whatever it is, I'm certain that Fat Shark can make it work. The only other thoughts I have about the likelihood of this, I think there's really only one other likelihood as to what this content could be, and that is some sort of expansive campaign of operations. Because they've said for a while now, ever since Rolling Steel, that they wanted to do more operations, and they took more than a year to produce the second operation with No Man's Land. No Man's Land does have hooks implied at the end of it that there is more stuff in the future on that storyline, right? On the main storyline, of course, which I think will be explored more through the main maps and the main map console, is Rinda Karnak and the Cult of Admonition and the Herald of Admonition, all that stuff that left off Dark Communion. I think that's going to be the storyline on the main maps. Then we can have operations that follow stuff that takes place outside of Tertium, where we have, the train mission. We have, well, I guess that's not really outside of Tertium, but we have No Man's Land, which takes place on the fringes. And at the end of No Man's Land, we end up scouting out the No Man's Land sort of heretic bunker, and we find those coordinates, and those coordinates point to a larger heretic stronghold that is also on the fringes of Hive City Tertium. So that could be the campaign that we are looking towards exploring there. And maybe, because they said that this was their plan from the very beginning, they are looking to separate those two into two different areas. There's an operations side of things, and then there's a regular map side of things. Although I tend to think, since they put the effort into making the operations part of that main console and having you be able to play through those mini storylines, that they are steering away from that, and they're intended going to incorporate those as part of storylines on that main mission board. That's what I'm hoping anyway, because I really, really hope this is Immortus Trials, is a new game mode. And it would make sense because, as we had in Vermintide 2, the Chaos Waste game mode was locked off in its own area of Drakenfel's Keep. You had to go into a separate little room, and everybody in there was queuing for the Chaos Waste game mode. So that's my thoughts, guys. That is my hopes. I will hopefully find out kind of soon, and you guys will find out. One would think probably around the end of the month, since we will be expecting a last week of March-ish launch date for this. That's typically been the update schedule for the first update of the year. So we don't have that long ahead of us before we find out one way or the other, but I am very, very nervous because the confidence, and I don't know if you guys have been feeling this, the confidence that Fat Shark has been coming out here with and saying, we are releasing this class. We do have one update before this, and we're going places this year. Like, these are very uncharacteristic of Fat Shark. It makes me think that they are holding cards that they can actually lay down and play this year rather than scrambling, and that gives me a lot of hope, but I'm also super, super anxious because I really hope they have been cooking and that people are going to like what they did because yeah, I mean, it would be devastating if they didn't, right? Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope to see you in the next one. Mystery out of here. Bye-bye.